Tonight, for the first time, U.S. military aircraft flying undocumented migrants out of the country as President Donald Trump launches his deportation campaign. The White House releasing these pictures, dozens of migrants in chains boarding C-17 aircraft.
A few moments later.
So here's what went down. Colombia told Donald Trump, you cannot land military planes in Colombia when you are deporting Colombians in America to Colombia. You need to show Colombians dignity and respect. We're a sovereign nation.
A few moments later.
Yeah, Fred, just moments ago, Donald Trump reacting to the news that Colombia had blocked planes carrying undocumented migrants from delivering those individuals back to their home country, and Trump now retaliating with tariffs and threats of more tariffs. He said in a post on social media, quote, I was just informed that the 2 repatriation flights from the United States with a large number of illegal criminals were not allowed to land in Colombia. This order was given by Colombia's socialist president, Gustavo Petro, who is already very unpopular amongst his people. Petro's denial of these flights has jeopardized the national security and public safety of the United States. So he has then goes on to say that he is taking some action against the Colombian government, including a 25% tariff on goods coming from Colombia immediately, and he's threatening to raise that to up to 50% next week. He also is calling for a travel ban and immediate visa revocations on the Colombian government officials and sanctions on party members and family members that support the Colombian government. So
a few moments later.
Several hours of back and forth posturing ensued before finally the White House declared victory. The government of Colombia has agreed to all of President Trump's terms, the press secretary said. Today's events make clear to the world that America is respected again. It was the unprecedented use of military planes to deport migrants that so angered the Colombian president. But ultimately, it was the threat of tariffs on Colombian goods like coffee that forced him to capitulate. Their public spat, no doubt a taste of things to come, since Trump has threatened to slap tariffs on any country that doesn't bend to his will, even if those tariffs hurt American consumers with increased prices. The president has made clear that immigrants are going home, no matter the cost.
Leia and the Wookiee must never again leave this city.
That was never a condition of our arrangement, nor was giving Han to this bounty hunter.
I have altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
This deal's getting worse all the time.
Furthermore, I wish you to wear this dress and bonnet.
This was never a condition of our arrangement.
I have altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
So Trump has hit the ground running with the immigration crisis, but I'm going to now convince you all in the audience that not only did Republicans want this to happen, but secretly the Democrats did too. Here's the evidence.
I spoke with the president himself. I spoke with the president first. Then the president came here to New York City. The governor and I sat down with the president. And I said, Mr. President, I'm not sure what they're telling you about this problem, but this is a terrible problem that's playing out on the ground, that we need to fix our border, and we need to just stop allowing people to come into the country with no destiny. We don't know what we're doing with them. And there was some that were coming here that were almost 6 months to a year, in some cases 2 years, without any work authorization. Like, what do you do with someone that cannot provide for themselves for that long period of time?
All right, welcome to the channel. My name is Nate the Lawyer, and today we are talking about Trump, immigration, and Democrat hypocrisy. Now, for those of you who haven't heard, here in the United States, we have an immigration problem. See, Latin American countries have been essentially emptying out their borders, and everybody's coming up here to the United States, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Now, when it comes to immigration, in the United States, we have the blue Democrats and the red Republicans. The Democrats thought of immigration as a strength. The more illegal immigration we have, the better it's going to be for the country. So people like AOC and Kathy Hochul Hochul, who's the governor of New York, were saying things like, hey, we want as many immigrants to come to the United States as possible. We want you, we love you. Matter of fact, let me just let you hear the governor of New York saying it.
We want people to come here, despite where they came from or despite the circumstances that drove them to this country and to this state. We say you are welcome here. We are welcome with open arms, and we'll work to keep you safe. We'll not only house you, but we'll protect you. And the richness of the culture and the diversity and the food and the restaurants that we know are going to be coming because of these efforts are beyond measure. It's an extraordinary part of our story, and it's woven into the story of New York, and it makes us more vibrant.
Now, Kathy Hochul wasn't the only one saying that. The mayor of Denver was saying it. The mayor of Chicago was saying it. Los Angeles, Washington, D.C. You name a blue city or a blue state, they were saying we want as many illegal immigrants to come across the border as possible. Now, at this point in time, the Republican Party pushed back and said, well, hold on. How are you going to take care of all these people? You got to feed them. You got to clothe them. You got to house them. Who's going to pay for that? But the Democrats said, hey, we're going to pay for it, but you got to let them in. And that was the impasse at the time. Now, during Trump's first term, he got frustrated with Democrats blocking him wanting to change immigration policy. So he said that, hey, if Democrats wanted illegal immigrants who come across the border, he'll ship them to Democrat-run cities and then let the Democrats in those cities figure out how to take care of the illegal immigrants they wanted. Here is Trump saying that during his first term.
They want more people in their sanctuary cities. Well, we'll give them more people. We can give them a lot. We can give them an unlimited supply. And let's see if they're so happy. They say we have open arms. They're always saying they have open arms. Let's see if they have open arms.
Now, unfortunately for Trump and the Republicans, Trump lost the presidency to Joe Biden. And when Joe Biden got in, he made a promise to open up the border. So guess what? The border was wide open. Come into America, your new home.
Now to the crisis at the border. The mayor of El Paso says the city is at the breaking point as thousands of migrants are crossing every day.
We continue to see near record high numbers of migrant crossings, both here in El Paso and all across the border. What the new Border Patrol chief tells me is unsustainable.
Thousands of migrants continue to cross the Rio Grande today from Mexico into Texas.
And the main push is happening around Eagle Pass with nearly 10,000 crossings in just the past 24 hours.
The numbers that we're seeing are the largest that we've seen in nearly 2 years. They're simply being overwhelmed down there. Officials with the Border Patrol Union today saying more than 100,000 migrants have crossed illegally and been released into the country since the 1st of September.
So as massive amounts of migrants started crossing the Texas border, Texas then started putting barricades on the border to discourage migrants from coming across the border. But Joe Biden administration said, no barriers. We want to make sure migrants can just swim across the river and get onto U.S. soil because we want them here.
The Biden administration is suing the state of Texas after Governor Abbott asking him to remove the floating buoys in the Rio Grande near Eagle Pass. The governor says the barrier was installed there to deter migrants from crossing into the U.S. illegally.
Texas now has less than 10 days to move the floating buoys in the Rio Grande. Governor Abbott, as we know, ordered the floating barriers be installed. That was back in July. This was as a way, he says, to deter migrants from crossing the border. The Department of Justice accused Texas of placing those barriers without permission from the federal government. Well, today, a judge ruled that those barriers must now be removed by September 15th.
So the governors of Texas and Arizona said, this is insane old stuff. Why do we have to take in millions and millions of migrants who have no money and can't feed or support themselves? So you know what? We'll do the next best thing. We'll send them to the places that said they wanted the migrants, like New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Denver, and Los Angeles. So that's what they did.
Governor Greg Abbott is still sending migrants to major cities with Democratic mayors.
Now places like New York, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. are just trying to figure out where to house all those people.
The article that recently came out, it said black Chicagoans are angry that these immigrants, primarily from Texas, is being bused to Chicago and sent directly to black neighborhoods. And the one particular black neighborhood they were speaking about, those residents came together, held a press conference, and spoke out condemning that they don't have enough resources to have these immigrants bused to their neighborhoods, and they feel that resources that are limited already and small that are being allocated for them will now go toward immigrants. And I would say it's a trick, because trust me, Governor Abbott knew exactly what he was doing when he had those buses go to a black neighborhood in Chicago. He made sure that they didn't go to an affluent white neighborhood in Chicago. He made sure they went to a black neighborhood that was already impoverished for the sole purpose of getting black people angry, getting us to join the immigration debate, and getting us to have a problem with immigrants.
It's hilarious when you just make up stuff and say it on TV as if it's true.
So now you would think all is right in the world. Immigrants are able to come into the country willy-nilly, and the blue democratic cities that said, let all the migrants in, are now getting the migrants that they wanted. But we had a huge problem. See, when the migrants were in Texas and in those red states, the Democrats really didn't care and were okay with, them overrunning Texas. But now that migrants are coming directly to New York and to Chicago and to Denver, well, all those Democratic places started declaring states of emergency. How the hell are we going to take care of all these people?
Governor Healy just declared a state of emergency in Massachusetts because of the number of migrants arriving in Massachusetts. Healy says they are overwhelming local shelters.
Here in Chicago, Mayor Lightfoot just issued an emergency declaration in response to the surge of migrants being bused to the city by Texas Governor Greg Abbott.
The New York City Mayor Eric Adams declaring a state of emergency over the ever-escalating number of asylum seekers coming to the city. The mayor says the shelter system is overwhelmed and that after today, the city will set a new record for the highest number of people ever in the system.
Now the Democrats had a problem. They wanted illegal immigrants, and now they got them. So secretly, Democratic cities like Chicago and New York started sending delegations down to the southern border to tell migrants not to come to New York City and not to come to Chicago.
Mayor Adams is going on a 4-day trip to Latin America where he says he will personally address the migrant crisis back home here in New York.
All right, he says the purpose of the trip is to understand why people are fleeing their home countries and to dispel any false messages about what happens when they arrive here.
And Fox 5's Michelle Ross joins us live in studio. Michelle, what kind of message is the mayor trying to send to migrants?
Well, Natasha, he's essentially going there to discourage them from coming here and to let them know that New York City is not the only place in the United States where they can achieve the American dream. We are now essentially about a year and a half into the crisis, and there is no end in sight.
But none of that worked. They still came, and they still headed to New York and headed to all of these sanctuary cities because they said, hey, we won't let the government deport you. So they were in a bind. So now I want you to understand where we're at. All those Democratic cities were okay with immigrants coming into the country, but they weren't okay with them coming to their cities. That's why they sent those delegations down there to the border to say, don't come to Chicago or don't come to New York. Essentially saying, go and be someone else's problem, but don't come and be a problem for us. Now, this was in contrast to the Republican policy of keeping all these migrants out until we can determine who rightfully should come into the country or not. Now, most of America thought the Republican Trump policy made more sense, especially people even in New York and Chicago, and the country voted back in Donald Trump so he can stop people from coming into the country and hopefully convince them to turn around and go back to their country.
Trump has promised to carry out the largest deportation operation in U.S. history, and before those operations begin, some migrants are already choosing to leave the country voluntarily. News Nation's Jorge Ventura joins us live from San Antonio, Texas this morning with more on this story. Jorge, how many migrants are we actually seeing doing this, leaving voluntarily?
Right now, Marky, it's unclear, but we are starting to see a trend, and this comes as cities across the U.S. and Mexico are now bracing for President-elect's deportation operation. But his hardline messaging on those deportation efforts have some migrants panicking and some even choosing now to self-deport back to their home countries.
And that's exactly what happened. Illegal immigrants started going back to their country because they were like, well, hey, we can't get into the United States, and they are now serious about border policy. But some countries were like, hey, we don't want these migrants back. We want the United States to keep them. Two of the countries I'm talking about are Venezuela, which the United States right now has massive sanctions on. It's run by a dictator, Nicolas Maduro, and the country of Colombia, where the United States has a good relationship with. See, the United States sent 2 planes full of illegal immigrants back to Colombia. The president of Colombia said, hey, you know what? I'm not taking them back. And if you think about it, it makes sense for him. Why am I taking back these migrants? They don't want to be here, and we don't want them here either.
Well, Glenn, Colombian President Gustavo Petro denied 2 United States military planes permission
permission to land in Bogota. The planes had at least 80 deported Colombian nationals on board.
So obviously this wasn't going to go over easy with Trump's policy, because Trump is like, hey, we're going to send back these people to their home countries. Now, if your home countries are saying we don't want to take them back, what you going to do? So Trump went ballistic, and this is what he did to the government of Colombia.
President Trump's whirlwind first week is ending with another bang. Earlier today, the president announced he's slapping a 25% tariff on all imports from Colombia. That includes crude oil, coffee, bananas, and cut flowers. The move is in retaliation for Colombia's decision to rescind permission for 2 U.S. Air Force deportation flights to land. President Trump now says Colombia's actions threaten U.S. national security.
So the government of Colombia was looking at essentially economic ruin because Trump was going to essentially destroy their economy. Well, they decided to change course and take back their citizens.
Got some breaking news this hour. Colombia has agreed to accept deported migrants from the United States. The country had earlier turned 2 military planes carrying the deportees back to the US. Now, the White House releasing this statement moments ago, saying the government of Colombia has agreed to all of President Trump's terms, including the unrestricted acceptance of all illegal aliens from Colombia. Tariffs and sanctions will be held in reserve and not signed unless Colombia fails to honour this agreement. The visa sanctions issued by the State Department and enhanced inspections from Customs and Border Protection will remain in effect until the first plane load of Colombian deportees is successfully returned. Today's events make clear to the world that America is respected again. President Trump will continue to fiercely protect our nation's sovereignty, and he expects all other nations of the world to fully cooperate in accepting the deportation of their citizens illegally present in the United States.
Now, remember at the beginning of this video when I told you the Democrats actually support what Trump is doing now with immigration, but they're just not saying it? See, Democrats tried to do what Trump did, except at the micro level. Democrats tried to stop the buses from coming to Democratic cities, and they tried to go to the border and tell migrants, go somewhere else. Don't come to New York, Chicago, California, or any of these blue cities. Now, while Chicago and New York are trying to protect their blue cities, Trump is trying to protect the country and said, well, we don't want you going to a red city, a red county, a blue city, a blue county. We don't want you to come into the United States, and let's stop them from coming into the country. And for all of you who are going to pearl clutch about the Democrats wanting illegal immigration, well, would it shock you to know that New York City was actually busing migrants to other places around the country? Matter of fact, they had an office that said they would send migrants to any other place in the United States for free. Matter of fact, they'll even send you back to Venezuela if you wanted to, for free. They were paying for migrants to go away. And they also bused migrants up to places like Canada. So buses were coming from Texas to New York, and the New York was busing those people around the country to other places. Now, if you can't see by now, the Democrats actually wanted everything President Trump is doing now, except they wanted to continue to keep that political advantage of saying, we have an open heart, we want all these people to come here. He's racist. But when you look at what they were doing, they essentially were doing the same thing that the Republicans were doing, because they weren't able to take care of hundreds and thousands of people, but they were able to lie to the public to make them believe that they could. Now, I'm going to challenge you guys. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, do all that great YouTube stuff. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section. As always, my name is Nate the Lawyer, and if you're listening to me right now, if you're literally listening to this, why haven't you subscribed to the channel? If you have, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. But if you haven't, really, stop killing me. But as always, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.